Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. My name is Toyin Umesiri, and today I have an honorable guest joining me today. His name is Professor Joseph Mbele, and this is his book called Africans and Americans Embracing Cultural Differences. I'm super excited to bring him on. Such an honor, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Uh, I'm super excited. I got your book. And thank you for sending it out. I read it and I feel like today is going to be a therapy session.
That's so neat. Oh,
You know why?
yeah,
Because I don't think we Africans, I don't think we've created spaces to
yeah,
talk about our own side of the whole story.
yeah. That is very true. That's very true. Other people have written about us. It is
Yes.
time we wrote about ourselves.
Yes, and also that we create space
Yeah,
to talk about our reality and how we see and perceive the world,
exactly. That's the thing. That's the
which is what your book has done.
that's
So
the
I want people to go get the book. It's Africans and let me make sure I get it right. Africans and Americans embracing cultural differences. So let me officially introduce you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So in addition to be a professor at St. Olaf College, you actually also run a consultancy called Afri Connection Cultural Consultants. And
Yes,
you work with universities and colleges and students and businesses for cultural exchanges, right? That's how I understand it.
exactly, exactly.
Fine. So you were born and raised in Tanzania
Yes,
and educated at the University of Dar es Salaam and
yes,
Wisconsin Madison.
yes,
You've taught before at the University of Dar es Salaam,
yes.
and over the last 30 years, such an honor, sir. And currently you teach at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota, and you teach literature and folklore, and you've published widely in those fields.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
thank you so much for being here today. Such an honor. And your book, you are also very humorous. Like you're funny. Like I love it. Like
I'm so glad, all the Africans who read it like it very much for the same reason. And I'm surprised because I'm East African, I'm Tanzanian, I've never been to West Africa and places like that. But they all say, "Oh, you're writing about us."
yes,
And
yes,
they have been very generous with their comments.
yes. That struck me as well in terms of what you shared in your book as cultural, in terms of older people, having age being a factor in terms
Yeah,
of, you
I,
know, it's the same. Even
yeah,
in West Africa, I'm
yeah,
originally from Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian American.
yes. And the thing is, I'm very lucky. As you said at the beginning, I teach literatures and folklore. And this includes a lot of African literature. So I understand the African values through reading novels and plays and poems. And also, when we talk about folklore, we're talking about traditional stories and myths, legends, folk tales, proverbs. I understand the Nigerians. I understand the Senegalese. I understand the Zimbabweans through these kinds of, you know, um, explorations.
Yes. And
Yeah.
also what made me really part of also what made me laugh, you covered in your book, you covered how we also perceive the world in terms of for example, coming into the US as a student. I came in here for my graduate program in Michigan
Yeah.
about 14 no 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm laughing already. Like some of the things you talked about. Let me share one of my own experiences. In trying to describe how cold Michigan was. The way I when I picked up the phone and trying to call back home and say, I said it's like a deep freezer. It's like, I was like, how do you even describe? the cold of Michigan to
exactly.
people back home where
Yeah,
the weather is on the equator,
yeah,
it's so warm. I was like,
yeah,
you know what?
mm,
It's like when you open a deep freezer.
yeah. And that's what I tell people in Tanzania also. I use the example of a deep freezer because otherwise, how do you describe the winter
Below zero.
in Congo?
It's
And
below the freezing point.
yes, and you tell them the whole landscape. You step
Mm.
out of your house, it's like you are in a deep freezer.
Yes,
It's the only way to describe it. Otherwise, how do they understand?
exactly. And
People in Lagos, Dar es Salaam, how do they understand?
how do they understand?
Yeah,
Oh, I tell you, when I was reading the book, another one that caught my attention was, this whole idea that even in Africa, there's this misbelief that every white or every Caucasian person
yes.
is rich and intelligent.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Oh Lord, I was reading your book. I was laughing. I was like, yeah, no, you've not seen it. But that's really, when you think about it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's the
yeah,
stories that's
yeah,
permeated.
yeah,
While a lot of people think, okay, everybody's rich in America, everybody's wealthy, but the reverse is unfortunately true,
yeah,
where they think all Africans are poor.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And as I say in one of the last pages, uh, ordinary Africans, they are very rural, they work in the fields. And so, you see them wearing these clothes which are tattered. They don't
Mm,
have shoes because of the nature of the work they do.
mhm.
But Westerners will take pictures of those villagers and then promote the image. Oh, look at these people. They're so poor. They don't even have shoes. Look at those kids. And I talk about this,
It's
you know, people,
misconceptions.
yeah, people keep their clothes for special occasions. See them at weddings, for example.
Oh,
See
have you
them,
gone to
yes,
Nigerian wedding before? The
exactly,
fly. Oh my
exactly.
goodness.
See them at weddings, see them at church or in the mosque, on Friday. Then you will see a very different picture.
Exactly. And that's really true. I think it's just the way the world wants to see
That's
others,
it.
and the way the
That's
world,
it.
others want to see
That's
themselves.
it. That's
We
it.
always want to put other people down,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we want to
yeah,
misrepresent and say we are XYZ. And I
yeah.
think that's
And, that,
just
and that's why we need to write about ourselves. And when Americans see what I say, it opens their minds, because suddenly they see Africa from the perspective of an African.
mm,
Also, the funny thing is, it's the same African who sees America from the perspective of an African. And the Americans are like, oh my God, we didn't
wow.
imagine, people would see us this way, you know.
Wow.
But they're also very happy that they get this dimension also.
Wow. I think what people also don't talk about
Yeah,
is what Africa has done for the world
that's
and
another, yeah,
continues to offer
yeah.
the world.
That's a very big part of what I do when I teach African literature. And I think that's one thing I was looking forward to talking about what Africa has accomplished and how it has helped to shape the world, even in business. And that was really why I was so happy to be, invited to your show, because there is that dimension. Africa is the cradle of the human race. Humans evolved there. And so they built all these things we are talking about, you
Mm,
know, technology and language and philosophy and
mm,
storytelling, literature, it all evolves there. Business, and
wow.
that's your field.
Yes.
The Africans were trading, thousands of years, and you come to, say, the Middle Ages, they are trading across the Sahara. They built networks, and you always talk about networks.
Mm,
They built the protocols, the modalities of doing business. So nowadays, when people talk about all kinds of things, including literature, that's my field, they just forget that it starts in Africa with the
wow.
evolution of language. You know,
Wow.
in fact, I have a cap. I didn't bring it. It says, "Make Africa great again." Yeah. I just forgot to bring it on the show. That would have been perfect.
That would be really, really
Yeah,
perfect, given the context of where the world and America is right now. So,
exactly.
wow, that's incredible. So,
Yeah.
even, okay, again, I need people to go get this book. Where is it available?
Amazon, and there's a website where it is published, www Lulu. I mean www period Lulu period and then com.
Okay, Lulu, spell that. Is it
Lulu.
Lulu? So www.lulu.com.
Yeah,
Or just go to Amazon as well, type
yeah,
his name,
yeah.
um,
Oh
Professor
yeah,
Joseph Mbele,
yeah.
Africans and Americans Embracing Cultural Differences. And you cover a whole lot of topics.
A lot of topics.
You
Yeah,
covered different. It's
yeah.
funny. I was just like
Oh, thank you, thank
laughing.
you,
It was
thank
really
you.
good. It was really good.
Yeah,
So even
yeah. Go
one of
ahead.
yeah, one of the things I did observe was that you try to make a distinction when you talk about America. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I noticed that you primarily you looked at it from the lens of whites, and then you input in there African Americans, because
Uh-huh.
I have some things that I would love to talk about
Yes,
within that
yes, yes, yes,
context.
yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
yes.
To tell you frankly, I thought about these differences within the American population, and at the end of the day, I saw there are commonalities. And guess what? When Americans go abroad, say when you see them in Africa, whether they are Black American, White American, any American, that's where they discover they are American. The
Mm,
great American writer, African American writer, James Baldwin. There's
mm,
a very famous African American writer, James Baldwin. He went out of the USA because he was tired of all the racism and all this. He went to France. He lived there for many years, and he wrote a very powerful essay. I mean, he wrote many things. There's a powerful essay he wrote. It is titled "The Discovery of What It Means to Be American."
wow.
And his point is this: here in America, he knew as a Black American, he was very different from white Americans, period.
Mm.
But being in France, he discovered he was
He
American.
was an American in France,
And
not.
he says he was not even different from the white American from Texas.
Mm,
That is his phrase.
wow.
So your question is very important. But at the end of the day, Americans are Americans.
American. I
They
love that.
share common values.
I love that. I think where this kind of shifts for me is for Africans, first generation Africans, for
Yeah,
example, coming into the US, particularly in your field, coming in as students.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think they are more inclined, more often than not, to interact with white
The
Americans than
thing,
they do African Americans.
the thing is a very strange
It's
phenomenon.
very strange, right?
It's a very strange phenomenon, and I've thought about it. And uh, I mean, you see it everywhere. I studied at the University of Wisconsin,
Mm.
Madison. Same thing.
Yeah, I have my opinions. Do you want to hear my opinions?
Uh huh.
So, part of it, I
Yeah.
think, has to do with generosity.
Uh huh.
What I have found
Uh huh.
in terms of when first generation Africans come into the US, there's a general side of white Americans that embraces the phenomenon that they need to be welcomed. There needs to be some level of hospitality towards foreigners,
I think so too.
right?
Think so
Because
too.
I have very kind,
Yeah.
very warm memories
Yeah. Yeah.
of the 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 Americans in this point in time, the white Americans in middle of nowhere, Mount Pleasant, that
Yeah.
took me in, that looked out for us
Yeah.
and treated us with such great hospitality,
Yeah.
recognizing the
Yeah.
challenges of transition for
Yeah.
Africans.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that frame of mind
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's relationship
Yes.
is missing on the side of the
Yeah.
African Americans
Yeah.
towards Africans. I like to say, okay, Africans and African Americans relationship can be divided into two.
Uh-huh.
Be- Before Black Panther movie and after
Uh-huh.
Black Panther
Oh,
movie.
I see.
It's my attempt to phrase it
Uh-huh.
like you're familiar with Black Panther,
Oh,
sir?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've watched it. I've watched it. Yeah, yeah. Now,
Yes.
um, to build on the point you were raising, I also felt as a graduate student in Madison, Wisconsin, and I've thought about it. You know how many times
Mm,
these Americans, these white Americans, would ask us, what do you think about our country?
mm,
They are very conscious that you are a foreigner, and they would like to project exactly what you have described here, generosity and welcoming, so that you go
hospitality.
into your country, with good impressions of the US. What do you think about our country?
Yes.
This question they kept asking all the time. It seemed like they're very sensitive.
Yes, and rightly
Mhm.
so, because we Africans do something similar when we welcome people into our homes back
Uh-huh.
home in Africa.
Mhm.
It's this I think the only word I can say is hospitality.
Uh-huh.
Right? Even because back home in Africa too,
Yeah,
when a guest comes into your house and knocks on the house on the door, your parents will all be trying to project the best side of us, right?
yeah,
Okay, you
yeah,
get him this. What does he need? Like,
yeah,
oh, are you okay? Right? Oh,
yeah,
do you need anything? Can
yeah,
we do anything else for you? Are you
yeah.
good? Are you good? Because that's really back to the foundation of hospitality,
It
which a
is.
lot of people have missed,
It
right?
is. It is.
Right? So it's hospitality. There's really
Yeah,
no other way to describe it, which is
yeah,
part of our common
yeah,
humanity. Is
yeah,
that when we engage with other people,
yeah,
we're supposed to be kind,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
supposed to be generous,
yeah,
we're supposed to be
yeah,
open, we're supposed
yeah,
to engage. Now, African students experience that from white Americans, but
yeah,
they do not experience that on the onset
yeah.
from African Americans. There's always this wall.
Now, the wall is a very good concept. It's a very good concept, and it's a very sad story. Sad story because Africans come here without the experience of racism. Back in
Mm,
Nigeria, back in
mm,
Cameroon, the only white person they see there is maybe a Peace Corps volunteer
mm,
or a teacher or a missionary.
mm.
They do not know racism.
There's no consciousness of it.
And so they come here, um, without a
Naive.
clue,
They're
without a
usually
clue.
naive, right?
And because of that, they meet the African Americans who have a very different experience. Their experience with white people has been, as you know, so hard, so terrible, all the ways from slavery through civil rights, and the racism that's going on. They have a very different mindset, and that causes misunderstandings between Africans and African Americans. It's very sad. And so, one of the things I always tell people is this: Africans need to study the history of African Americans.
Ooh, that's
The
powerful.
African Americans need to study the history of, they need to discover there are these tremendous differences in
Wow.
mindset and outlook. As much as I do, there's a lot of friction between Africans and African Americans.
But it's right now in this moment. That's what I mean by after Black Panther. It
Yeah,
has
yeah, yeah.
opened. It has opened um channels of communication.
I
Amazing,
think so.
beautiful.
I
And
think so.
I see we're being joined by viewers and their comments. Tama said, "Oh wow, Toyin, that's really sad. I'm very hospitable. I know Tama, you're one in a billion."
Oh,
Tama is one of our my network members. She's absolutely gracious.
okay.
But Tama, I have to tell you, you're
Oh,
not the norm. You are extremely, 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 extremely like you're amazing, right? And we need more people to be you're a very generous person, and I really do appreciate you've extended that to a lot of the community members, and that's why you're building such a great relationship that helps you to be successful in business. But what myself and Professor Joseph Mbele is talking about, we are generalizing in a way,
Yeah, yeah,
right? We're
yeah.
generalizing. We're not looking at the smaller group in a set. We're saying the
Yes,
majority of a
yes.
certain behaves in a certain way.
That's
Correct?
very true. We trying to generalize, and frankly, uh, we will never claim that every single African is this way,
Hmm.
every single American is this way. No, but it's important to know these general tendencies.
General tendency.
And,
Absolutely.
even for the work you do, and that's how I view it now. Um, when I talk about the need to understand, the cultural differences, it's a very safe thing to have a general picture of, this is how things go, in Africa, or this is how things go in America. You don't assume that every American will, manifest those characteristics. So your word generalizations,
Yes.
generalizing is very
Yes.
appropriate.
Yes. I think because even in business, you have to understand the way the world works
That's
and you
true.
have to put things in context.
That's very true. And um, that's what attracted me to the show when you told me if I could come on, because um, you're talking about Americans trading with Africans, doing business, and I'm like, this is great, and you have such a phenomenal, kind of
Thank you.
understanding of the dynamics of it. And the thing I'm interested in, again, because of my research and my consultancy work and all this, is this: it is still a relationship between people.
Hmm.
When this American goes to Lagos, Nigeria, it is very helpful that they know the sensibilities of those people there, things they like and don't like, how they communicate, their feelings. For example, how they communicate, how do they use language? Do they speak directly? Do they
Mm.
get around the bush on certain topics? It's very African sometimes. Do they be
Oh,
direct? You know,
okay.
do they maintain eye contact?
Oh, I have to
You know,
confess. I have to
those
confess.
kinds
I
of
have to
things.
confess to you,
Yeah,
sir. I now, my American side, there are some things that my African side does that I cannot stand anymore.
exactly, exactly. Those are the things. And so imagine you're a businessman, businesswoman in Kano, in Nigeria, in America. Those things can hinder,
Wow.
those things can disrupt, those things can facilitate.
Mm,
Um, there are so many of them. There are so
mm.
many of them. And those are the things that, people need to investigate. They
Yes.
really need to investigate and be aware of and be sensitive to. You could ruin a relationship, a business relationship, because of your mannerisms.
Oh my goodness. Okay. This what you just talked about is
Yeah.
hot topic in my world
Uh-huh.
because I have found myself spending more time coaching people.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So there are two sides to this coin. There is the American business leaders, or in your case, like you have like faculty or students doing student exchange and visiting, right? But I also try to focus also on the African side,
Yeah,
learning as much as they can about not just America now,
yeah.
anywhere, any other place in the world they want to do
That
business
is
with.
true. That is true.
Because Indians, Chinese, everybody, there's parts of us we should never be asked to change, but there are rules of the game or
Yeah.
rules of engagement that we need to become more self-aware,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
That if you want to do business with a Briton or a British person or an American,
Yeah,
how you engage, how you connect. I mean, things as simple as
yeah,
the way we draft emails or the way we engage on social media. Try to say, for example, I'm teaching a class this Friday on how to build a globally relevant brand and business. The world is super connected with internet. You can
yeah,
actually
yeah,
connect with
yeah.
anybody anywhere in the world. But in order to be successful, so
Yes,
that's
that's
the
the
difference.
thing. That's the
What
thing.
yes, how do you become successful
Yeah.
has to do with what you just talked about, mannerism, how you present yourself. For example, one of the
Yeah.
things I've started sharing with people, okay, when people approach an investor, it's so typical that they say, "Oh, I need an investor. I want you to invest in me." I'm like, it's so common. People don't know that below the surface of that is
Yeah.
actually like I'm asking for money. I'm begging for money.
Uh-huh.
People
Uh-huh.
don't know that that's where it's translated from the
Yeah.
investor standpoint. They're
Yeah.
not looking to give their money away.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
will run away from you if you keep saying, I need an investor. And I ask people to now change their language too.
Uh-huh.
Why don't you say, I have an investment opportunity that I would like to share with you?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Can you give me a few minutes to
Uh-huh.
present to you my investment opportunity?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Something as, you know, something as small as that,
Yeah.
it shifts the conversation from you're begging,
Yes. Yes.
you're appealing,
Yes.
because investors are looking for investment opportunities that gives them
Yeah.
return on investment. They're
Yeah.
not looking for charity cases, right?
Yeah.
Which I see in the context of
Yeah.
Africa. How do we shift that conversation from aid, help
Yeah.
Africa, to
Yeah.
trade with Africa?
Yeah. I've noted this is a big emphasis in your lectures, and you are so eloquent. You are so, clear, in making those arguments. And I remember I saw one of your presentations. Actually, yeah, it was and I commented on it. And I think that's how we got connected, because I
Yes.
commented and I went on and on and on and on. Um, there was a point where you talked about the need to understand what you call the customer profile.
Mm,
That's the phrase that struck me,
mm,
because I was thinking now to myself, as a cultural consultant, how do I define customer profile?
mm,
And so I'm looking at it this way. Say you are an American and you are trying to sell products to people in northern Nigeria, or you're trying to sell things to people in Somalia.
mm.
Customer profile there means what is the culture in northern Nigeria?
Yes.
What's the culture in Somalia?
Oh my gosh.
You don't say you are a clothing, you do clothing, you trade, in the textile, industry and all this, and you are selling clothes. You don't sell skirts to Somalia.
Mm,
You need to know those are Muslims.
mm,
Nobody's going to buy skirts.
mm,
You can sell skirts in Michigan.
mm. Cool.
You can sell your skirts in Tanzania. But if you are going into Somalia, you just
Mm,
need to know what's your customer profile. I mean, what are the customers like in Somalia? You
mm,
don't sell pork.
mm,
You don't send meat to Somalia. Those are Muslims. They
mm,
only eat meat that is halal.
mm.
Halal,
Yeah, yeah, forbidden. Yeah.
exactly. So for me, when you say the customer profile, I was looking into
So,
the details of the kinds of things that I talk about in my book, the tastes of those people, even how you package your product could actually, facilitate or disrupt your business. Packaging, advertising, advertising. You
mm,
may create an advertising, thing for Americans, and it works perfectly. But if you translate it into, say, Hausa, it
it
could
does.
be something terrible.
Yes.
So
Wow.
language becomes an issue too. Language. Things can be lost in translation. You mentioned China. You mentioned China.
Next week we're talking about China, Africa. Yes.
Exactly. Now, if you understand the culture of the Chinese, see, again, you make, clothes and all this, and hats and, shirts and all kinds of things. You don't sell green hats to the
Mm,
Chinese because nobody's going to buy a green hat. Just
wow.
think about it. And I discovered this only a few months ago. Nobody is going to buy a green hat.
Mm, wow.
Sell them all kinds of hats, different colors. Please don't sell them
Why
green.
is that?
Oh Lord, it's a long story. for a man wearing a green hat in China is a
Wow.
grace. You are
Wow.
telling the world that your wife is unfaithful.
Wow. That's, oh
A
my God.
green hat. So you may ship thousands of green hats to Beijing and discover nobody's buying them,
Hmm.
and uh, and then you ruin your reputation as a company
Wow.
because you sent green hats there. So
Wow.
these kinds of things, and there's a point you raised about being subtle, little things, but the little things could be huge.
Yes.
The reputation of a company could be ruined by such a mistake.
Yes.
You know,
And
one little mistake,
that's
everything
it.
is gone. Yeah,
And that's, I think for me, I come at this from that perspective because having worked for the world's largest company, there's a sensitivity towards
yes,
the
yes,
nuances, the
yes,
nuances that I'm very aware of. And that's one of the reasons I tell people invest in coaching, invest. Like there are some things you will not learn in 2, 3, 4,
yes,
5 years.
yes, yes,
But if you want to be successful in business,
yes,
in doing something you've never done before,
yeah,
it's only wise. How I wish, and the interesting thing is I did spend about 2 years before I ventured out and resigned. I
yeah,
spent about 2 years
yeah,
speaking and engaging with leaders,
yeah,
executives
yeah, yeah,
around the world.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Around the
yeah,
world.
yeah,
I spent time with advisors to presidents, economic, like I was like, okay, this is what I'm thinking about Africa. What have you done? And people started telling me stories about Chile. What did Chile did?
uh,
Vietnam, Cambodia. Like people actually explained to me the economics of why Chile in the late 80s and early 90s, the Chicago boys, students of economics know this. Like a vice president originally from Chile told me that. He
uh,
explained the stuff.
uh-huh.
So I spent about 2 years
Yeah,
engaging global leaders, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
their perspective
yeah, yeah,
shape
yeah,
the work that I do.
yes,
But
yes,
I see, sir, I see a whole lot of people
yeah,
running out there
yeah,
talking about trade, but they've not invested the time to even study what they're talking about. That
exactly,
that's the problem.
exactly. And investing time to study the people you are going to deal with, investing time to actually understand yourself, where you are coming from, so that you can actually relate better with the other people. Look, uh, one of the things that got me started thinking about business, as a cultural consultant, and I've started only a few months ago, by the way. And so I came to your show knowing I basically came to learn,
Oh,
also, but also maybe to begin to introduce this dimension, just to introduce it. And I think what we are doing today is just trying to raise a little awareness that here is something they need to be thinking about. Those who
yes,
want to trade between Africa, America, Africa, and the rest of the world.
yes.
And one of the things that got me started thinking about business and the cultural dimension is this. I was reading reports from Tanzania about the Chamber of Commerce there. I think it's called the Tanzanian American Chamber of Commerce. They had a
Uh-huh.
meeting. Exactly, they had a meeting, and what I found interesting was this: the Americans were there, and they were talking to the Tanzanians, and they were saying, you know. Uh, Tanzanians, we would like you to do this, we would like you to do this, we would like you to do this, have rules in place which are consistent and flexible, predictable. you
Did
know
that work?
they were giving a whole list of things. Deadlines have to be kept. you know um, I mean, fairness and all kinds of things. They had a whole list of things, and I was reading and I was reading and I was reading, and I even wrote a little paper on Medium. There's this forum called
Yes,
Medium. I was inspired by this because I told myself, look here, the Americans think that these things they've laid out are universal. And I was looking at myself and saying, why don't the Africans stand up and actually say, You
Mm,
know, in our continent, we
mm,
have thousands of years of experience of doing business. We have
mm,
developed our own protocols,
mm,
our own ways of doing things, which are congruent with our culture. I mean, things like deadlines
mm.
and things like reading between the lines, read the fine print. How do you talk about this to Africans who are
That's
very used
American.
to an
That's so
oral culture?
American.
And a lot of flexibility in Africa, by the way.
Oh,
A lot
yes.
of flexibility. You know, people will say, will come at 9 o'clock, and
Oh,
the
God.
Americans will actually look at the clock. And
Oh, my gosh.
when the Africans say this, there's flexibility. There are some other things that can happen to prevent them from coming at 9 o'clock. For
Mm,
example, you are going to the meeting and you meet your mother in law on
mm,
the way. And I say this in my book. This is an African going to a meeting, say from Kaduna to Lagos, and their mother in law lives somewhere, between those two
yep.
points. They're not just going to drive through, you know. You stop at your mother in law's village
Mm-hmm.
to
With
say
yam. With
hello.
yam.
Yes. They,
Yam and
they,
plantain.
they will kill,
And
some chicken, you know. Mostly
ah,
with the meeting in Lagos, but
yeah,
this
it's
is my
gone.
mother-in-law. This is my mother-in-law. So
Mm,
Americans need to know this
yeah.
Nigerian guy is coming to Lagos, but his mother-in-law is somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I think,
Stop and
yeah.
say hello. This knowledge. Don't
Mm.
think about deadlines. Don't think about, you know, punctuality in a very strict Western sense. There's
This is,
flexibility in Africa because
but this,
Africans
yeah.
privilege human relations.
Human relations.
Relations come first. If
Mm.
you're an American trying to do business with Africans, you really need to pay attention to these things and find a way to accommodate.
Yeah. Well, this is where I strike a balance.
A
Okay.
balance, that's the
A
word.
balance. Okay.
That's
The
the word.
balance is like you talked about in your book. The way after my conclusion was we know how it is today. Okay.
Yeah,
How cultures are today.
yes,
For me, though, there's an ideal on both sides.
on both sides, yeah.
So the Africans have to step up their game.
Exactly,
The Americans have
exactly.
to. So there are adjustments that has to happen on both
On
sides.
both sides.
One of it on the African side. Let me just talk about COVID-19. We talk about punctuality. You talked about traveling from Kano to Lagos, and the person had, their in-law, right? One of Just yesterday, I was talking to a government official. I won't name the country, and I told we were laughing. I laugh a lot. These things are funny, but they're not funny.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, okay, good for you guys now. COVID-19 is here. You no longer have the opportunity to tell somebody to come to your office and sit down there for 3 hours before they meet you.
Aha.
Nobody's doing that anymore,
Aha.
right?
Aha. Aha.
Disruption. Where we know,
Yeah.
a lot of people know
Yeah.
that to do business in certain quarters on
Yeah.
the continent,
Yeah.
you have to be ready to waste your time.
Aha.
That's
Aha.
not okay.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
longer okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's no longer okay. Those are the tough conversations. Like
Yeah.
if you're in the village and you want to do that, that's fine.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
to engage with
Yeah.
regional and global trade,
Yeah.
that's not happening.
Yeah.
Another thing I do, even in my coaching, okay, there were some groups. There's so many things I do privately. I try not to share, but
Yeah.
since
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we are being very direct, let me share one.
Yeah.
Um, you know, a lot of Africans run on WhatsApp groups, right? WhatsApp groups,
Yes.
like
Yes. Yes.
WhatsApp because of internet connectivity and all of that.
Yeah.
And there's so many of those groups that I pull myself out. I can This is my American side speaking to me like, Tony, what are you doing in that group? Like, that's a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then some of the people in the group will say, Toy, but you know us. Why don't you tolerate anger with us? Like I'm like, who's
Aha.
got time for that?
Aha. Aha. Aha.
And one of them, I pulled him and I had this conversation. And I said, you want to do global trade, correct?
Yes.
He said, yes. I said, all of those things you guys used to do, the world is not going to change for you.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to take advantage of the global market, and the global market runs on time.
Yeah.
So those are that's where I come in to say I know I am an African.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know what's I know who we are. I know how we want to do
Yeah.
things. I know our
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But I've also true living outside of Africa for many
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
and seeing
Yeah.
what distinguishes productivity.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you talk about productivity, I've worked in manufacturing for
Yeah.
several years, one of the top manufacturers in the world. I've
Yeah.
worked in a factory where we produce dishwasher.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
worked on manufacturing systems where we talk about production planning and quality management
Yeah.
and on and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in every minute counts when you run a line.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Every second counts. Quality. We
Yeah.
we have systems where we measure even when those machines produce things. We take samples for
Yeah.
every maybe 500 or 1,000 piece that the machine produces. We always pull samples from the line and we test the dimension.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
seeking perfection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so
Yeah.
that's
It is.
I'm coming from that world.
Yes. It is very complicated, and that's one of the things that I knew we would have to address, because I come from this area where, I just talk about, say, students going to Africa, visitors of different, but here now we're talking about business. And
Yes,
as you say, there needs to be the awareness, for example, that we are involving technology, for example, and flying, say, from one part of the world to another.
mm,
And even if we have African time, that flight from Lagos to New York is going to leave at a certain time.
wow.
So how do we make these adjustments? And it's going to be the challenge of the future. How to merge the cultural imperatives with the realities of business in a globalized world, a
That's my
global village.
that's my challenge to you.
It is a big challenge. Yeah, exactly. And I'll be thinking about it. We need to find a way to explain, say, to the
Yeah,
Africans,
I think you have
and
a
to the
gift.
Americans too, to the
Yeah,
Americans too.
I think you have a gift. You have a gift. And what I'm challenging you, sir, and I
Yeah.
know in Africa, if I were in Africa, I wouldn't challenge you.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Thank you for permitting me.
yeah,
Sir, my challenge is not just explaining
yeah,
how people should engage as it is right now. I think
exactly.
the opportunity is how do you shift?
That's it.
How
That's,
do you shift
yeah,
your clients
yeah, yeah.
towards the ideal?
It is very true.
It's tough.
It's very true, because we cannot. Okay, again, say in my book, I do talk about uh, the realities behind the surfaces. You may find this, say, Nigerian business person, say, in New York, but I'm trying to get Americans to know that deep inside there are some things they might not be saying. Say, for example, this very sophisticated business person from Lagos is in New York at a big international conference, and it's time to go for lunch.
Mm.
Deep inside, that Nigerian would want fufu,
Ooh,
you know?
yes.
Then in the conference in New York or Chicago, they're going to eat some American food. But
That
deep inside, this person needs fufu.
oh, that's why. So that's why in my conferences, like I also host conferences
Yeah,
before COVID, right? We do it virtual now.
yeah,
The night we do a welcoming reception,
yeah.
and all the only thing we serve is African delicacy.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's
So
what you just talked about.
it's those kinds of things. And um, the point you raise is, how do we get ourselves to be comfortable with these necessary changes?
Yes,
They have to be necessary. And
yes.
the Americans, but still I would insist this, Africans need to be a bit more assertive.
Mhm.
The Americans are very aware that the Japanese do this, they do this, And the Americans know if you are doing business in Japan, you have to understand this, you have to do this. Somehow, we Africans need to be a bit more assertive. We
Yeah.
should not allow them to lecture us, the way they lectured, in the report I was telling you about. You
Mm,
know, they say you need to create a conducive business environment. It
mm,
sounds great in theory as a concept, but beneath it is
mm.
the idea that business has to be done the American way.
Wow. Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's what I find problematic.
Oh,
Because
wow.
when Africans come to America, Americans, of course, are used to the way they do things here. For
Wow.
them, that's convenient, that's conducive, the way Americans do their business. But think about the Africans who come now to do business in this country.
Mm,
Are they comfortable with the American way? And Americans are very comfortable with it. And that's what they want to
mm.
see in Africa. And that's where I
Wow.
have the problem. They tell us to create a conducive business environment. But what I'm reading there is they want an American type environment in Africa.
Oh gosh, you're going into I don't. You're going into different.
Yeah,
Wow.
this is
You know,
where it gets really interesting in my view.
let me touch on. You've touched so many things that
Yeah,
you have to come back. You have to go because let me just talk about one.
yeah,
In my private conversations with political people, and
yeah,
now I teach them now.
yeah.
Even yesterday, I still had this conversation. You talked about conducive environment, and
Yes, yes, yes.
what I talked about yesterday was doing business index on the World Bank,
Uh-huh.
right? So there's a one World Bank doing business, ease of doing business ranking that
Yes,
World
yes,
Bank ranks
yes,
the
yes.
world.
That's the phrase they use, ease of doing business. Thank
Yes.
you. That's the phrase they use, yeah.
But one of the things I also chipped in when I was talking to this person was many African politicians do not know. When you travel abroad and you go for all these trainings that are being delivered by these people, they are teaching you how to implement policies that will be favorable to them, not
That's the
your own
thing.
people.
That is my concern.
Yeah,
Reading beneath the surface,
surface.
behind the appearance.
Yes,
And they say these things innocently,
yes.
but in their mind, they have this misconception that there is one way of doing business, and that's what they call,
And I think, gosh, I think us,
yeah,
'cause so this is where my approach to life. I tend not to point fingers. I
yeah,
always
yeah,
put in myself.
yeah,
Like, how do I see the world? What can I shift? What shift do I have to bring about for myself? And I think that's what Africans have to do. You cannot change the way of you can't change the way of the world, but you can look within yourself through self-awareness. And the Indians have done it. You know, you have a whole lot of programs in place for Indians, for example,
uh,
within the technology space,
yeah,
where when young people come out of university, they immerse them in this cultural experience so
yeah,
that they can be on phone with Americans and serve as their help desk,
yeah,
calling center. These groups of young people have never left India, but
yeah,
they are being immersed in American culture so that when somebody calls from a phone company and say, "Hey, is that the customer service?" An Indian is responding and saying, "Yes. How is the weather in California today?"
yeah,
They've never left, but they've been immersed in culture. And those are the things not all Africans need to go in this space. I'm just saying,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah,
context of the global market,
yeah,
we
yeah,
need to
yeah,
be savvy. The other thing I say is, as Africans, this
yeah.
is we are we love simple life. We
That,
don't like complexity.
that's it. Yeah,
But global markets and regional markets is filled with complexity. And global trade is a fight, which is what you talked about assertiveness.
yes, 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 yes.
Assertiveness has to come in when you know what is at stake. When you don't know what is at stake, you are giving your resources for free without any fights.
Yes, yes.
Think about even the whole thing of slavery. You gave your people away. I mean, it's not funny. It's not
Yeah,
funny.
yeah,
But it's my challenge to you, sir, to say,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
we
yeah,
know our people,
yeah.
but which of our the things we now call culture, which of those things
Yes,
are not helping us to be successful
exactly.
in doing business.
It is very true. And in fact, I talk about African culture, but if you examine those dimensions, those elements, you might find some of those are not really useful.
Whew.
You might find some, for example, when I talk about health issues,
Mm.
I think some of our cultural practices and beliefs, they are not really good from a
Wow.
scientific point of view.
Wow.
But it's very, for example, we eat the same food every day.
I saw that. I
Food,
was
food, food,
laughing.
food, food
I
the
saw
whole
that
day.
in your book.
Exactly. I'm talking about it to get people to know this is a cultural values.
Yes, it's
They
fufu
may help.
every
They
day.
may not be
Rice, rice
scientifically
or fufu.
tenable. They may not be
What were we
scientifically
eating before rice?
exactly. So it's ugali, 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 matoke, matoke, or fufu, fufu, fufu. And if that man, that woman who eats fufu in their culture doesn't have fufu on a given day, they say we are starving.
Yes,
I
that's
tell
what.
American, those
Yeah.
families will say we are starving
Yes.
because we don't have fufu. They may have rice, they may have pizza, they may have everything, but they will say we are starving.
Yes. Yes, that's why when you do a training or an event for 2.5 days,
Exactly.
you've got to serve
Yeah.
them some.
Yeah.
Is it that jollof rice
Exactly.
or
Exactly.
you've got to put it in. They cannot go 48 hours without.
Exactly. So I'm talking about this is our culture. I don't mean to say it has to be that way.
Mm,
It's appropriate. It's good in all respects. No, I'm dealing with culture, and culture can be very irrational. You
mm,
know, it can be very unhealthy.
mm,
Cultural aspects can be very unhealthy, but this is the culture. And
mm.
I just talk about it. That understand what we are dealing with.
Yes,
When we are
and
talking to has these values.
yes,
It's the next level to teach the people, that fufu every day might not be good for you.
mm.
It will take time.
It will take time. And I see a lot of comments I want to bring on, but before I bring on,
Yeah.
I also see there's also an opportunity within your work, sir, for African students coming in, for them to be immersed in what to expect and how to be successful. So, for example, coming into graduate school, I
Yes.
graduated top of my class, first degree mathematics from Nigeria. So my intelligence is not in question.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But when you come to American system, if you don't speak up in class because you are being measured differently,
Yes.
or your
Yes.
grades, the way you win in Africa is not the way you win in America as a
That's
student.
very true. That's very
Okay,
true.
so if you are not participating in class, if you are not speaking up in class, and you're only writing and doing all the right things, you still fail
That's
because
very
a lot
true.
of your grade is has to do with class participation.
That's very
So
true.
that's one. The other thing I see in the corporate world, so that's as a student in the corporate world, a lot of Africans do all the work, technical work. We have huge technical competencies. We
Yes.
do all the work, but we don't know how to present our work to take credit for it. So we do the work and hand it over, and then somebody that is smart will go and do the presentation, and that's the person
That's
that
very
gets
true.
promoted
That's very
because
true.
we don't have this awareness factor that what
That's
it takes
very
to be
true.
successful
That's
in
very true.
America. It's
Yes.
not just your technical competency, it's your
Yeah.
EQ, it's your emotional,
Yeah.
like it's your networking, it's your communication, it's all of these things that education back in Africa doesn't emphasize.
It is very true. And it's another long story. The culture of the students. American kids are taught to be, vocal, outspoken. But you might have some Asian or African students in the class who comes from a culture where you respect your elders.
Mm,
And you have a 70-year-old professor, and the kid is just 20. For them, the cultural values are you don't challenge the elder.
mm,
So you'll find kids in the classroom who are quiet, but they're very smart and they don't get rewarded for class participation.
yes.
And the American kid who talks because they
And
don't,
doesn't have the same technical competency, get
but
all
they
the
don't,
grades.
and they're not taught to respect the elders. So they're the ones who get rewarded for class participation.
Yes.
Can
And
you
and then
imagine?
I laughed. I laughed in one of the things you talked about in your book. You talked about a student coming into your class and
Oh
giving
yes,
eye.
this one,
I
this
was
one.
laughing.
Yeah,
You want to talk about that story? Talk about that story.
yeah. So she came to complain about the grade, or to ask about the grade, and she was looking at me, and I'm an African old man, and I thought this was so impudent, you know, a mere youngster coming to ask for a grade and looking at me like that, or staring at me. I
Oh,
got so mad, and I talk about how I wished I could be,
it's a stick.
I
I
could
read
grab
it.
a
And
cane and chase her out of
you
the
can
office. Yeah, yeah. Those kinds of cultural moments,
Oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
was when I read that in your book, I was laughing because I could
We can
understand.
visualize it. We can visualize
Yeah,
it.
I
Yeah.
could visualize it that if it was in Africa,
Yeah.
that stick
There would be a lot of trouble
people
that
out.
day. There would be a lot of trouble that day. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, let's bring in. We've been having some amazing conversations there. Um okay. Alex said, what about the fact that Africans are fond, some call it African love the West more than they love themselves. Okay,
Uh-huh.
they are fond of Western culture and people. I believe this affects how Africans in the diaspora will relate with Westerners. So I think what this Alex is saying is, we're falling in love with the Western way.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
how is that affecting how we now relate
Yeah. Yeah.
Western and ourselves as well?
Yeah.
How we see ourselves.
This is a problem of the colonial
Mm.
legacy. The colonizers destroyed us really seriously.
Wow.
And scholars like Franz Fanon have written about this, and we suffer, these problems. The damage is there.
Mm,
We tend to look up to the West, as a model for everything, you
mm,
know, culture, politics, and whatever they do, we consider to be what
the
we should
ideal.
do.
Mm,
We measure ourselves,
mm.
by the standards of, the Western world.
Wow.
And it's a very sad story.
Wow.
And the sad story, it's a sad story, as I said earlier. Africans need to just go back to the fact that we were the originator, for these things. We were great civilizations. Europeans were actually behind us.
Mm,
And you look at the stories that early European travelers told, who traveled in Africa, and
mm,
how much they admired the African
mm,
cities and networks and social organization. You look at travelers from North Africa,
mm,
like even Batuta, who had traveled, in other parts of the world, and then comes to Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, East Africa, places like Kilwa, Mombasa, and they talk about how elaborate, the culture, how elaborate, the social structure, how well planned the cities were. And then colonialism came.
mm.
It destroyed all these things, and it destroyed even our mindsets
Wow.
by imposing Western ways, Western standards, and trashing,
Mm.
African ways. That is the problem we are still
Face.
suffering from,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it comes in many ways. In many ways, even this topic we are addressing here, the topic of business, is the same thing. We have lost the sense that we had our own ways of doing business.
And we still do.
Which
We
were
still do. Well, what I try to talk about, I talk about three markets: the local market, the regional market, and the global market.
yes,
That's and I try to tell people your local market is wherever you are. For us in the US is our local market.
yes,
Okay? So even within the context of what we are talking about, let's look at cultural differences. When you're dealing in your local market, you're dealing with people who know you and you know them. And there's a level of comfort in your engagements because
very
they're people,
true.
right?
Very true.
So if you're dealing and buying and selling in America, it's not a big deal. You go in, you
No,
buy,
no, no, not at all. It is
right?
not. It
But
is
I
not.
now tell people, when you want to go from local market, to regional. So for us in US, regional is US, Canada, Mexico.
That is true.
You now have to cross-border transactions. For those in Africa, it's neighboring countries. Under the AFCFTA, it's
That is
neighboring
true. That
countries.
is true.
You now have to infuse what are the cultural differences when you try transacting across borders,
Yes.
right? Because the mistake people make is they want to bring the same rules that they use in the local market, they want
Uh-huh.
to use it in the regional or global, and they fail,
Okay, okay, okay.
right? So
Yeah,
there's also then the global market that goes beyond just your region to the rest of the world. So within my own context, I try to help people understand that just because you can trade in Nigeria or Tanzania or
yeah,
Ghana, the
yeah,
practices
yeah,
that you use
yeah,
to trade, to buy and sell in your local market, you need to up
yeah.
your game.
That is
When you
true.
now want to do Tanzania, Ghana,
Yeah,
Tanzania, South Africa,
yes.
Egypt, Nigeria, Morocco, you
Uh-huh.
need to respect
Exactly.
what you're going,
Exactly.
who you're going after. You need to now, and I tell people now, Africans need to now start learning
Yeah,
because there's also side of us that we're very comfortable in our own villages or where
it's
we
true.
are. We don't
That's true.
travel as much as we could be.
Yeah,
But in the world that we live in now, we need to explore more. We need to make more friends. We need to,
yeah,
we need to network. And that's why, the network I created, right, which we're going to extend complimentary access because we were talking about that before we came on. I
yeah,
think my network, within the context of what you do,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think they need to
Yeah, learning,
they need to learn.
learning is part of it, and opening, our minds and
Mhm.
broadening our horizons to ensure success.
Yeah.
If we want to trade and trade successfully, there is that homework we need to do.
Mhm.
I'm getting into a different market now. What do I need to know about it?
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, you
Yes.
use the phrase customer profile in that
Yeah.
lecture.
And the customer profile is within the context of one of my classes
Exactly, the
on business
expanding.
development.
Exactly.
Because the customer profile really, when it comes to business modeling, which I also see a lot of us, we don't know those principles and we don't apply it
Yeah,
in that context of business modeling,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
When you know your customers,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
there are
yeah,
two things you want to know about those customers.
yeah.
Their pain points and their gain, their aspirations. I'll call it aspirations.
Absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
whatever service
Yeah,
or product you're trying to sell
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
them,
yeah,
it has to be something that helps them achieve
yeah,
their aspirations or
yeah,
something that elevates their current pain. Otherwise, they're not giving you their money,
yeah, yeah.
right? So
Okay,
that it's within that context of business modeling because I teach that now
yeah,
because I see a lot of
yeah,
people
yeah,
building businesses, right? I'm
yeah.
looking at time. I want to pick a few more.
Okay.
Henry says Africa is not one cultural or psychological construct. Even a single Nigerian presents sometimes marked faces. Yes, it's
That
true.
is
Even
true.
even you pick one country, there are
Yeah,
diverse things going on even within one country. Wow. I'm looking at time now.
yeah,
This is such a
yeah,
fascinating conversations, and I'm super excited that we could even have this
yeah,
such a frank, open way.
yeah,
And I want to encourage people again to go get this book, Africans and Americans Embracing Cultural Differences by Professor Joseph Mbele. It's available on Amazon. And you also serve as consultant under the Afri Connection. Did I say that well?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so, so just say a little bit about what you do in that space, so
Yes,
people can
yes. It started with me being an advisor for study abroad programs for various American colleges and universities, which take students to Africa. So I would give them cultural orientation for years. And then I said, I have this experience and knowledge. Why don't I start a consultancy business? And so I registered it. And so I talk to companies, I talk to organizations. You know how in America, for example, they deal with diversity issues. You
know.
have a company, and in that company, you have Egyptians and Mexicans and Americans and Nigerians working, and they need to understand each other's habits and ways of doing things and communication styles for the company to work well. Or it can be a hospital. You have nurses from Jamaica, you have patients from Nigeria, you have a doctor from China, those kinds of things. They also need to understand the cultural differences. So under the rubric, under the umbrella of this company, I'm able to actually go talk to organizations, talk to, colleges, talk to, any kind of, non-profits, or communities or churches, congregations. Um, but I did not really do much work in terms of, um, the trade aspects that you are dealing with. And so, as I said, I came here to learn because you are so knowledgeable. I enjoy your lectures, I enjoy your videos, and there's always something.
Yes, every day I'm like, I need to share more.
Yeah, so I'm trying to bring this dimension into my work so I
Wow.
can actually sit in a conference like the ones you run, Trade with Africa conference, and to
Yes.
talk to these people. So I want to know the things you do, and I'm learning a lot. I
Yes.
want to
And
bring my perspective into,
yes.
you know,
Oh, wow. And I'm even taking it deeper. I think when we start, we say, okay, trade with Africa. I'm taking it deeper now. In fact, one of the, okay, maybe I'll just share a little bit. One of the upcoming events, and I really think of it as a platform, is Chicago
uh,
Africa Business Exchange.
yeah. That's
For the
amazing.
last, yes, I moved to Chicago about 2 years ago, and I've been engaging with economic development boards here, World Chicago, World Business Chicago, like the business, because Chicago has Board of Trade and all of those things going on. And in our conversations about trade with Africa, like most cities in America, they do not prioritize Africa,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah,
even within the context of being a global city,
yeah, yeah,
Africa doesn't fall on their radar. And the work I've been doing the last 2 years with them, we've been sensitizing and educating, and they've also seen the work that we do. And now, this moment in time, they're like, Towing, we have to do something.
yes,
We see what you're doing. So,
yeah,
in partnership with World Business Chicago,
yeah,
because I meet with them from time to time. We've been building that relationship. We decided, you know what, let's take it to the next level.
yeah,
Let's look at sectors,
yeah,
sectors where we can
yeah,
where we can engage. So let me give you example:
yeah.
entertainment. So I was in, just like we're talking now, I was invited to speak at an event with Kenya officials, and one of the people on the show happened to be a government official responsible for the media industry in Kenya.
Uh-huh.
And he was saying, "Oh, Toyin, we've been looking at Hollywood, Nollywood movie coming out of Nigeria. We've been looking at the US. We want to partner with people like Tyler Perry and all of those things. Like we want to go into Hollywood. Da 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 da." Da. I was like, "Hmm, have you ever thought about Chicago?" And they were like, "Chicago." I was like, "Yeah, Chicago. This is the place that created, the home of Oprah, the
Mm-hmm.
Obama. There's something about Chicago being the third largest city in the US."
Yeah,
I was like, "Would you be open to
yeah, yeah,
exploring Chicago, even though from an entertainment
yeah,
standpoint, you don't really think about it?" And it was like, yes.
yeah,
I said, okay. So I called my contact,
yeah, yeah,
set up a call. I was like, this Africa is looking to, and they
yeah,
were like, yes, 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 come.
yeah,
We
yeah,
you can shoot your movie in Chicago. You
yeah,
can, we have
yeah,
studios.
yeah,
We have studios in
yeah,
Chicago that actually competes with
yeah,
Hollywood, but it's less expensive.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I was like, whoa, okay. And then even just yesterday, also Nigeria, there's an export board that
yeah,
they've been exporting talent when
yeah,
it comes to the creative industry. So I
yeah,
also pitched it to them. I was like, Tony, we're ready.
yeah,
Tell us,
yeah,
tell us what to do. Bring our actors and
yeah,
our directors to
yeah,
explore. We could come
yeah,
shoot things in
yeah,
Chicago. I said, okay, I'll
yeah,
do this.
yeah,
So
yeah,
everything that I do
yeah, yeah,
comes out of
yeah,
I listen a lot. That's
yeah,
something I do. I listen a lot before I create platforms.
yeah,
And when I create those platforms, it's usually unifying, it's
yeah,
usually specific and targeted. So this year, the
yeah,
Chicago Africa Business Exchange is
yeah,
focused on entertainment industry,
yeah,
agriculture, and trade. And we
yeah,
want to just bring those businesses and
yeah,
political people together, and
yeah,
let's just start talking and
yeah.
see what happens. So I'm sitting in between all of those things, and I'm
And
just
you've been such a passionate, such a charismatic, such an indefatigable
wow.
advocate. It's amazing. You are doing amazing work, and I'm
Oh,
telling you, I've become a very diligent follower of
Oh,
everything you do. I'm glad
oh,
I've discovered the work you do. I'm learning a lot.
oh.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
yeah,
Maybe another story another day, but yes, it's me deciding that I want the rest of my life not just to be relevant for myself,
yeah,
but I want to offer my skills, talent, network,
yeah.
impact my community
Okay.
as best as I can. That's all. That's all I'm trying to
We
do.
really appreciate this. We really do.
Oh, thank you
You're
so
doing
much.
amazing work.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
And so expect from me a complimentary access to, I've actually renamed the group from Trade with Africa to Trade
uh,
and Investments
oh,
Facilitation Network Group. Because what's happening is
yeah.
everything I've been working on for Africa,
Uh-huh.
cities around the world are telling me they need it as well.
Okay, okay.
So, so I'm still exploring what that means.
Yeah,
But this is now a network for trade and investment dialogue.
wonderful.
And people are already doing business, they are
Yeah,
networking and doing so. I expect from me a
yeah.
complimentary access to
Okay.
that network. And so I want to give you what are your last messages or parting messages to our viewers? And this video, I see
Uh-huh.
the question. um okay, it was actually someone saying, Joseph Davis was saying, I want the recording of this interview, please. It was like, I want the recording of the interview, please. I have a
Oh,
now.
I see. I see. I see.
So yes, we'll
Yeah.
make the
I think,
recording available to you. The
yeah,
way you saw that, the way he typed, it was like, please.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Joseph.
yeah.
So Joseph, Mr. Joseph is the honorary counsel for South Africa in, I believe,
Oh, okay,
and
okay,
somebody you need to connect with as well. And we have so many other people on our platform. So that's why I featured him.
okay.
He's the honorary counsel for South Africa.
What a pleasure. What an
Yeah,
honor.
it's such a pleasure. So yes, expect
Yeah,
access. There are so many people on the network that needs to hear you speak, sir.
yeah.
And
Sure.
I honor you. Thank you. You are elder. I
Oh,
give you
thank you.
true honor, and I appreciate you for showing up. So, what are your parting words, sir, for everybody
I
watching?
think we should just keep learning, and as we have said in this interview, um as we move forward in any direction, expanding our horizons, there's a lot of learning we need to do. But as you have always said yourself, the future is bright.
Mm.
I see optimism in everything you say, and you project that, and our continent needs that. Our
Oh,
continent needs that. And you have always said, we should move from the mindset of aid to the mindset of to the advocacy of trade. And so these are great leaps, and these are very optimistic,
trade is very empowering.
very empowering. Yeah,
It
very
gives you
empowering.
upper hand.
Yeah,
Because when you're bringing value to the
yeah,
marketplace and you
yeah,
know your value, then you can command respect.
yeah. You are a very inspiring figure,
Oh,
and
thank you, sir.
we are so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Really, really.
Oh,
So I would just like more people to come and listen to you, to join your network, and there's a lot to learn from you. And I wonder where you get all the time to learn so
and
much.
the energy.
Yeah. So those will be my last words. You are a role model.
Oh, thank you, sir. I tell you, I sit at the feet of
Yeah.
incredible
Yeah.
people around the world. I
Uh-huh.
have
Uh-huh.
access to the most brilliant minds.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
people that advise presidents.
Yeah.
I sit down with them.
Yeah.
I share with them my challenges.
Uh-huh.
Um, gosh. I
Yeah.
mean, one of them is called Scott Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you hear other people's stories, it keeps you going.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Scott Ford
Uh-huh.
was the CEO of Alltel,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
and
Okay.
he sold Alltel to Verizon for $29 billion.
Okay, okay.
But Scott took his earnings
Uh-huh.
when he was in his late 40s. He
Okay.
invested it in Rwanda.
Okay, yeah, yeah. You've told that story. The guy, the one who does coffee.
Yes, coffee. And I told him, Scott, I'm going to spread your story so far.
Yeah,
I'm going to
yes.
keep talking about you
I
because
have
you
heard it
represent.
from you. I've heard
Yes.
it from you.
So
Very inspiring.
Scott
Yeah.
now is the single largest private investor in Rwanda, and his work has increased the livelihood of over 50,000 farmers
You
in
see,
Eastern Africa.
you see? Yeah,
So I have access to those people and I hear their story.
yeah.
story is inspiring. Even before I resigned from Walmart, I had coffee with him. I was like, Scott, I'm leaving. He was like,
Okay.
don't leave, don't leave.
Oh,
He was like,
okay.
you need to stabilize first before you leave. And
Yeah.
then after I spoke to him, a couple of months later, I was like, nah, I've
Yeah.
resigned. He was like, Tony, I told you not to. But
Yeah.
we talk
Yeah.
so often. So,
Amazing.
so that's where
Amazing.
the inspiration comes
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
Because I even interviewed three investors such as that, and I have those videos. And
Okay.
I
Okay.
see, and I told them, you guys are more committed to Africa than even us Africans.
Yeah. 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 Those are the stories we need to hear. To get out of the lethargy, to get out of the, lack of confidence, and to just be very optimistic and dynamic, and you know, knowing that we will actually be able to change things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm going to send you a complimentary invite to the network, and then this
Okay.
Friday I'm doing a class as well. If
Thank
you're,
you.
if you're able to join us, it's more of how do you build a globally relevant brand?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Because
Yes.
that's
Yes.
what I have done. Hopefully,
Yeah.
people see that with the work that I do, I've
Yes.
strategically positioned it that is globally relevant. And now I'm saying we need to do more of that, like brands, whether in Africa or US or wherever, with the COVID-19 disruption to the marketplace, your customers may not be in your city.
Yes.
Clients may
Absolutely.
not be in your city. They may not even be in your country.
Absolutely.
How do
Absolutely.
you engage? And your work, I think, those cultural
Yeah.
differences
Yeah.
even online is
Yeah.
could help us win and help us
Absolutely.
position to engage better.
Absolutely.
Wow. Thank you so much, sir. You have to come back, but I'm looking forward to having you again. Everyone, go check out on Amazon this book, Africans and Americans Embracing Cultural Differences by Professor Joseph Mbele. He's a professor at St. Olaf College, and it's such an honor. I have a few announcements I want to make, but I want to thank you, sir. It's an
Thank you.
honor. I really appreciate it. Just say bye to everyone, and then I have a few announcements for our next speaker as well. God bless you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for having
Oh,
me.
see you soon on the network.
Thank you.
God bless you. Wow, wasn't that amazing? I tell you, there were so many things I wanted to talk about, but gosh, incredible. Next week, I'm having Mr. Sam Onanda joining us from China. And we're going to be talking about the US China Africa relationship. Well, with the US China trade war, where is Africa fitting? How does Africa fit into that conversation? So you don't want to miss it. Next week, I'm going to have Mr. Sam Onanda from the, I believe, China Chamber of Commerce and the work that they do to build China Africa trade. So you don't want to miss it. So tune in next week. So that's the first announcement. As you've heard me talk about Chicago Africa Business Exchange as well. That's coming up very soon in second week in March. So you can actually register right now. Just go to nazaru.com/Chicago, nazaru.com/Chicago, and you can access the information. Also, this Friday, I'm teaching a class because of what's my community. I show up like last year, I shared that this year I'm going to be showing up more for my community. And part of the struggle that I see is how you build your business, how you build your brand, whether it's products or services, how do you position it that it becomes globally relevant, where you're able to attract customers, right? You're able to structure it in that way. Also, we'll be sharing skills around export development, business development. Like I'm packing a lot in that class. And for those members of my trade and investment network, every month, every single month, I'm teaching a class, and I'm also doing business coaching for them. So there's group coaching. There's also one-on-one business coaching that I offer. I tell you, for me, the last couple of years, to be honest, I never really had time for this type of engagement. I was so busy building Nazaru, my own business, and different things. But with COVID-19, part of what also happened with the shift I had to make was realizing that in order for us to grow the trade number, we actually have to coach people to achieving the level of excellence that we're crying out for, or at least I'm crying out for. So join me this Friday. Registration is available on my profile or on our trade network, www.nazaru.trade. as well. So it's been an honor. I see a lot of comments. I'll go ahead and respond after this show, live show. I'll respond to you guys individually. But thank you. I also want to thank Professor Mbele again. Such an honor. We're going to bring him into our network. Definitely, we'll have some more other conversations with him because I tell him he has such an amazing skill and information. Even for me, right? It's such therapeutic to see another and to hear another leader and an elder tell us that our aspirations are valid. Our emotions need to be there needs to be space for who we are as Africans, whether in our own community or in the world of trade or in the world of education, which is what I really see his work has done to create a space for Africans and Americans to learn each other, to know each other, and to do business with one another. Finally, as we're exiting, I want to say this show was sponsored by my my beauty brand, my lipstick. Go check it out. I'm going to play a video from that, and then that's going to be the end. So thank you again. Go check out Amazon for my lipstick brand. For I tell you, they are really amazing. Just in December, one of my friends who is a guy was like, "What should I buy my wife?" I was like, "Come on, buy your wife my set of lipstick," and that was what he stuffed, and she really loved it. So I've never met a woman that said I have too much lipsticks. No. So the lipsticks are made from shea butter coming out of Africa. So it's connecting the value chain as well, which is part of the work that I do. So thank you. It's such an honor. See you again next week.